So if you're giving any thought to decorating a vintage cake, whether it's a single or multi-tier cake, I learned a ton decorating this one, and I will walk you through how to do it yourself. So last month, I got a request from a friend for a white, vintage, Lambeth, whatever style cake for a wedding. I told her I'd do a practice run before booking the order. I'd be lying to say I wasn't a little bit worried, but one test run was all it took for me to feel like I have my feet under me, and she was happy with the look of the practice cake. I wrote a post and made a video covering a few things to consider before making a cake for a big event like a wedding. I will link that in the description. So let's get into it. First, before I forget to mention this, the cake in this video is a practice cake. For the real thing, I'll definitely use a thicker cake board or cake drum. Buying these in person is ideal. I've ordered them online, had them show up warped. That's super annoying if you don't have time to get a new one. There are about 1,000 video tutorials and classes available online that cover frosting a cake and getting the sides straight. I have another video on wedding cake assembly that I will link here. My assumption putting this video together is that if you're looking into making a cake like this, you probably have some basic knowledge of frosting cakes. But in case you're on shaky ground where frosting is concerned, I'll link a video specifically on getting cakes frosted in the description. So then I added the dowels for support. I used milkshake straws cut to the height of the base tier and then one regular straw in the center to help keep the top tier centered. That's really helpful for transport. Okay, time to decorate. So the first step is to assemble your piping tips. It doesn't matter that you get exactly the ones that I've used, but they're posted below. Basically, you need a small star tip, one large ridged or French star tip, and then either a petal tip or just a slotted basket weave tip. Oh, and then one small round tip just for accents. Next, you want to mark your swags. Swags meaning the little swoopy things around the cake. I figured out I could do this with a plastic cup that I cut in half. It just happened to be the right size. But folding a parchment round in sections and then placing that on top of your cake gives you an easy way to eyeball the length of the line so that they're even. Okay, piping. So first you can see I prop my turntable up a bit with a measuring spoon. Put something sticky underneath the cake board if you do this. You do not need the whole cake sliding off the turntable. This first swag was the most challenging to pipe. I did a quick practice on a paper plate and that was really helpful. I started at the top edge of the swag and piped really kind of a close zigzag pattern following the line that I'd marked with the cup. I made it a bit wider at the base of the swag and a touch narrower at the top. Because of the multi-layer swags I was going to do and then the decorating I was going to do at the top of the cake, I left about an inch of space above that bottom swag. All right, next we do the two ruffly swags. And this is fairly straightforward, but it also took me a little bit of practice to kind of get the hang of. If your hand is zigzagging up and down for the first one, kind of picture it more zigzagging in and out a bit as you pipe these next swags. That makes that ruffly look just a little bit more pronounced. A quick aside, because I forgot to say this earlier, if you have never invested in piping tip couplers, I would recommend getting one or two of those or using two piping bags and putting your frosting in the first one and then the piping tip you want to use and your frosting bag in the second one. Being able to switch tips out easily was a lifesaver decorating this cake. Okay, next. Now with a large French star tip, it's time to add a border at the base, at the middle, and around the top. You can actually see a bit of evolution in my piping technique here. At first, I was trying to pipe it kind of continuously like a border, but eventually I found it easier and cleaner to just pipe one bit on at a time and kind of leave a break in between each one. I just found that really cleaned up the line and made it look the way that I wanted it to. All right, now the small star tip is back for a second smaller border around the top edge of both tiers. And I brought back the paper plate for a practice run first. A lot of this piping you can kind of do in whatever order you want to, but I would leave this border until toward the end, maybe after the swags in that larger border, just because it's positioned in a spot that I felt like was a little bit easy to bump when you're working on other parts of the piping. After the second border was done on my base tier, I started the detailing on the base tier, honestly, because this is where paranoia got the better of me for a bit. I wasn't confident enough in how it was going to do the same steps for both tiers at the same time. I figured if I ended up having to scrape everything off and start over, I would rather redo one tier rather than both. But it ended up turning out fine, and really I could have saved myself the headache of a lot of piping tip changes had I just done the swags and stuff for both tiers at the same time. Just a thought. So the finishing detailing, kind of 3 steps here. I added a teardrop at the top of each swag with that same small star tip. Then a small rosette at the top of each teardrop. Again, same tip. So then in the open space underneath the swags, I piped a small 3-point flower petal-ish design with a number 3 small round tip and added a sugar pearl in the center of each one. And that is all the steps. I am switching to warp speed for this top tier because you have seen all this already. To recap real quick, here are the steps that I followed to decorate this cake. Number 1, obviously, you gotta frost and smooth both cake tiers. 2, mark and pipe the bottom swags, the star tip zigzag ones. Number 3, pipe on the 2 ruffly swags, the one that I did with a petal tip. Number 4, add the large borders with that French star tip at the base, the middle, and the top of the cake. Number 5, we're getting into the detailing, teardrops at the top of each swag. Number 6, small rosettes at the top of each teardrop. And then finally, flower and sugar pearl designs in the open spaces. And that is everything. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Any questions, leave a comment. If this was helpful, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And I wish you well on your cake decorating endeavors.